of people.
Welcome back to another episode of Apex Mountain. I'm your host, Jacob Lindgren, and with me, as always, are my two good friends, Tanner and Zack. How are you two doing?
What's up, brother?
Doing good, man. Let's do it.
This is the first of two episodes of Christian Bale. We're talking about our first two picks, The Prestige, Zack's pick, and American Psycho, mine. We will reveal the final two movies at the end of the show. Zack, lead us off with The Prestige.
All right. Well, when I knew we were going to do Christian Bale, I've got a good movie in mind, and that's why I wanted to do The Prestige. It's jam-packed with some good actors that he has to pretty much compete with on stage, but I think it's a great movie that has a lot of twists and turns and really keeps you on the edge of your seat till the very end, and I think he does a pretty good job.
Completely agree. Tanner, how do you feel about it?
I really enjoyed this movie. A lot of times with me, with kids and everything, it's hard to sit down and want to focus on the movie. And it wasn't 30 seconds into this movie, I was like all in. Staying up late, I don't care.
The whole movie is gripping, and I think part of it is definitely Christian Bale, but part of it is Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman does such a great job, and I'll talk about him a little bit when we talk about the cast, but it was gripping from beginning to end. I love this movie. I've seen it 100 times already. It's great. I honestly think when we come back around to Hugh Jackman, it's going to be hard not to pick this movie. Yeah. And whenever we come back to a director and we do Christopher Nolan, it's going to be hard not to pick this movie again. So that's going to be a conversation we'll have to have at that point.
Sure.
But it's a great movie, top to bottom.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess I'll just jump in straight to top quotes. I got a couple here that are my favorites, and feel free to add in if there's any that are missing. First one that I like, Sarah's character, she says, "No more lies, no more secrets." And Borden jumps in with the "secrets are my life." And I think that was a good point in the movie because it really shows like where they're really starting to lose it, both of them. Angie Ayer says, "I don't care about my wife, I care about the secret," which is like 10 minutes after the first quote, and shit just starts to unravel.
Yeah.
Third quote, Borden again. He said, "It's part of my bloody act, you fool." And that's whenever he just rips his mustache off. He did it so sneaky, like he had already thought of that, and I thought that was so good. And then the last one I liked was at the end. Cutter says, "Remember when I told you about the sailor who told me what drowning felt like?" And Angie Ayer said, "Yeah, so it was like going home." And Cutter replied, I lied. He said it was agony.
Yeah.
I thought that really encapsulated the movie at that point in time.
Yeah.
That's my personal favorite, the last one. What do you guys think? What's your favorite?
I'd say, I don't know if I have a favorite line. I think when we talk about the scenes, I'll have a favorite scene, but nothing really for me really struck out besides the actual scenes and some of the dialogue behind that, which probably plays a part in the directing when we get to talk about that.
Yeah, I'm on the same lines of that. I think so. This was my first time watching it, and you guys have seen it multiple times. And from everything I've seen, and what you guys have even told me, is when you watch back the second time, you see things or you understand it differently. Now I kind of understand it, even just looking at these quotes. Obviously, there's kind of a meaning that the first time you see it, you don't understand, but now looking back, I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So
yeah. I really looked into that this time of like, if I was watching this for the first time, I'd be confused literally all the way up until the end almost.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that makes Christopher Nolan so great is that every single scene he does in every movie he does means something. There is no throwaway lines. There's no throwaway scenes. And he's really in his own element when it comes to, movies like this, where he's kind of dragging you along and tricking you the whole way. But he's putting it right in front of your face. It's not like he's hiding information from you. And even an average director would hold some information back, kind of hit you with it at the last second. But he did the same thing in this that he did with Inception, where the entire thing is right there in front of you, but you're just along for the ride and you just don't catch everything because there's too much to catch. And after watching this movie and coming back to it, there's so many good parts of it. There's so many little hints to it. Like when I was watching it, I obviously knew when Borden was going to lose his fingers.
Spoilers.
There was a scene right after that, and spoilers. Sorry, my bad. he literally loses his fingers, and then the next scene you see him again, and he has gloves on both hands. And I was like, oh shit, he has fingers still. Maybe that's supposed to be a hint towards the other guy, but actually no, he cuts his fingers off, and you can actually see, if you go back to that scene, you can see an indent right here where it was like filling. Like you can actually see it in the glove. I'm like, every little thing in this movie is to the T. I loved it.
So I don't know if I was trying to find things, because last episode you guys had talked about, secretive, and I'm like, okay, so I need to be expecting something, and I didn't expect the finger thing until the end. I didn't even really think about that part as far as two people having that. I noticed some things that if I just pulled it up on TBS or something, it probably would have caught me by surprise. But because I was looking, I caught some things. For instance, whichever one was the brother at the time, like the one with the beard and stuff, he said, take her to the zoo today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there like, she's supposed to, Dad said, I'll take you later. So why would he say that if he tells him to go? So he's probably the same person. But what I thought what had happened was Tesla had made the invention for him first.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I still think that might have been what happened, but at the end.
From the start of.
Christian Bale's character is actually the one that was made two characters.
Right. Well, they explain it in that, I think, in his diary that he was reading at the end. He's like, I never did anything with Tesla. I just told you that.
Yeah.
The diary is beautiful because it doesn't make sense page to page, and it's driving Hugh Jackman crazy, but it's because they're both writing in it. That's what's so awesome about it.
Yeah.
And then another thing on why it probably wasn't Tesla helping Borden was that they have completely different personalities. They fell in love with different people. One of them's more laid back. One of them is just like Hugh Jackman, where he's just kind of falling into the trap of, I just want to learn. I just want to do the ultimate trick. I don't care who falls in line. And he ends up killing his twin brother's wife and Sarah. So, I mean, they are different people as far as their attitudes go. And I think if you were, and I don't obviously, I mean, I'm just kind of making this up, but I imagine if you clone somebody perfectly, they would have the exact same attitude, So, and they'd have to, because when they clone him and he's up in the top seating,
exactly,
that's
you don't know who it is.
That's the clone, and then he's killing himself every single time, and that clone goes with it no problem. He already knows what's going on.
Yeah,
I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And the first time I watched this, I thought there was like 3 maybe, because I figured Hugh Jackman would want all the credit and all the fame of being the one on top.
Yeah.
And being the one to be like, look at me, it worked again. And he was just unknowingly drowning his clone. That's what I thought the first time, but it's clearly not the case. And it's even way more twisted that he's standing there knowingly drowning.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but
it's pretty crazy.
He mentions it in the movie is he doesn't know if he is the real him or if he is the clone, and he actually did die. Like, it's pretty crazy to think about. If you've cloned yourself that many times, doing that magic trick every time, are you the one that drowned, or are you still the one that started this?
Yeah. Right. And he says every time I step on the stage, I don't know whether or not I'm going to fall through or not. It's pretty crazy shit.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Which is why, I mean, you follow along the movie and you're like, Hugh Jackman's the good guy. We'll call him, he's the main character. But then at the end, you're like, I mean, really, he's not, in my opinion. In my opinion, it's not. It's Borden. At least the
one half of Borden.
One half of Borden is the good guy, where he's like, all I wanted to do is just put on a trick. He's like,
I think actually the protagonist, the good guys, if you will, in this movie are actually the 2 women. I think if you go to Sarah, who basically died because of the addiction of the people that is around her, and also Scarlett Johansson. I mean, she basically was coming in.
She's never the good guy.
Right. She's too sneaky to feel like a good guy.
She's always the mistress.
She's
always the mistress.
Right. But at the same time, she's also there like, you guys are both insane. I'm not doing this. Even though she does end up kind of being with both of them at one point or another. Yeah. Her character still kind of has a line. You know what I mean? Has a distinct character line. I'm like, okay, you guys have reached the pinnacle of crazy and I'm out.
Yeah.
Whereas like that's where we kind of are as an audience, whereas they're taking it to the next level.
Yeah. And that's what I'm thinking too with him, because with Borden, the good Borden. We'll call him the good Borden. But like he acts okay. He wanted to prove to whoever that he could tie that knot.
Mm-hmm.
He was wrong, and I think he does know what knot it is. He just doesn't want to admit it.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing he did wrong. That's just a mistake.
Well, that's
I mean,
the thing
after
is it's
that-
not the same one.
I mean,
it's not the same one. The guy that tied the knot is a different Borden than the one that went to the funeral. And the reason why is because the one who tied the knot is the aggressive one that's more like Hugh Jackman. The
I
one that's a
completely
nice
forgot about that.
guy, the one that's a nice guy felt bad about the death and went
And
as
that's
the
why he
idea
doesn't know.
of them. And he literally does not know because he was not there.
I didn't
Right.
even think of that. Mind blown. I completely forgot
Right.
about that.
Right. And that's what's so
So
great
he's
about this movie.
completely the good guy.
Right, he is
the good guy.
completely the good guy, and he really didn't know. But because their secret is more important than anything and anyone, including his dead wife at the end,
Right. Yeah.
because it's more important than anything, he never breaks character, even when he wants to, and he's there because he feels bad that his brother freaking killed that guy's wife.
so
And-
so who broke the woman's fingers then? Would that have been the bad one?
Oh yeah, because it's the same. It's the
they
same.
were both
person.
going. They said they were both going though.
They were, but there was also Hugh Jackman pieces where he was doing his tricks and he was just sitting watching. He didn't get
Yeah.
up. But some of them, but the other ones, the guy actually got up and was like, "How can I screw all this up?"
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to believe he's the one that broke the bird's cage. He's the one that went with the mask and, he's like, "I'm part of the act, you bloody fool." He's the one that goes downstage and ends up getting arrested because they think he's the killer.
Yeah.
He's the
true.
same guy that pushes it too far and ends up getting caught because of it. Whereas the guy who has a daughter and everything is like the one that's kind of like, kind of sitting back and just taking the brunt of it.
This
It's
is
really not an even trade.
This isn't one of my favorite scenes, but it is crazy how committed they were to it. Of like that point where they were fighting, like him and Sarah were in that last fight right before she kills herself, and it's like it's going like so crazy, and she can tell who's who because of how they say "I love you" and stuff. And they were not willing to just like give me 5 minutes to go switch this real quick and come back just so that she wouldn't kill herself.
It was so cool that
fully committed.
That instead of him barging in and being like, "This is too much. This is he instead takes care of his daughter, and he kneels down next to his daughter and he's like, "It's okay. Let's go walk this way. Let's do something different." And I don't know what you would do in a situation like that, but maybe your first instinct wouldn't to run in there. Maybe your first instinct would be like, "I'm just going to take care of this kid. It's just like any other argument they've had before. I'll smooth it out tomorrow." You know what I mean? When I'm the other Borden.
Yeah,
and then there was no
thought
tomorrow.
That. They probably thought that.
But before we go any further, because we're jumping around all over the place, let's just do top scenes.
All right.
My favorite, and the one I'll start with, was Angier bowing under the stage. I thought that like perfectly encapsulated Hugh Jackman's character, that it's not good enough to have the perfect act because he finally copied it. He found this really artistic way of copying it to where it worked perfectly or near perfectly with the drunk guy. And it still wasn't enough. He had to get the credit too. And that, I think, is the antithesis of him. That is him to a T. And I thought that was the best scene in my opinion. Other big ones were the final scene where Angier was killed, where Angier saw Borden's trick the first time. I just thought that was so cool. He looked completely awestruck. I mean, just baffled. And then the funeral where Angier yells, "You don't know? You don't know!" to the guy who really did not know.
Right.
Do you guys have any other scenes that you liked more than us?
Yeah, so the beginning scene, right, when Michael Caine is showing the daughter the trick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's actually the very last scene right before he comes in.
Yeah.
Right.
So he's telling you about what the prestige is in a magic trick. And then bringing that back at the end, you're like, oh.
Right.
Yeah,
it was so cool, that scene,
that.
because, and again, this is just another shout out to Nolan because he's a next level kind of director. But most people, when they try to explain something, they do it in such a dull way, it takes you out of the movie. Well, a magician's act is everything to them and blah, blah, blah. And like, it just sounds like shit. But when he does it, he's got cool names for each one. It sounds legitimate. He found Michael Caine, which is basically one of the best narrators, period, right up there with Morgan Freeman, to read it out to you. And you just buy in immediately. You don't need to see anything else. You don't even need to see who's in this movie. You're automatically in.
Yep.
It's such a good scene.
Yeah. And we'll hear more about Michael Caine later too in other movies. But Yeah, I agree with the final scene, like where you suspect everything. Maybe you don't. I never suspected the twin
Hmm.
or having the brother, and then just how everyone finds out everything at the same time. Like that's my favorite. And
Right.
like they even had the music. Like the music was like boom, 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 boom. Like you're
Yeah.
like, what the freak is going on? Like what's going to happen? And they don't really talk about it, but I think Michael Caine called Fallon, because he doesn't really know, and called Fallon was like, hey, here's where you can find Hugh Jackman down here in this basement, and you can
Right.
kill him. I think because they
Right.
pass each other on the street, and he just kind of gives him a head nod, like,
Well, do
all
you
right.
think that he knew that there was two Bordens?
No, I think he
I
just
think he
called
did.
Fallon. I think he just called Fallon and was like, hey, if you get rid of him, I bet there's some way you could get the kid back. I'll get the kid
He
back for
he
you.
would have had to have found out, right? Because one guy, like he's with them at
Oh,
the
you're
end of
right.
this.
Yeah,
Well,
you're
the
right.
way that he says it too, when he's talking to, when Hugh Jackman's losing his mind, and he's like, there has to be a better way. He can't just have a double. It's not good enough. He has to get off to the other side somehow. Blah blah blah. And he's like, no, he's got a double. And the way he says it,
He
like he
knows.
doesn't think that there's a twin. He doesn't think that there's like a guy that looks like him. Like the way that he said it, I was like, and it might be because I've watched this movie 20 times, but
Sure.
the way he says it, I'm like, okay, maybe he's bought into it too. Because if there's anybody on this planet that's gonna buy into the ultimate trick, which is to hide your twin your guys' whole life, is probably gonna be Michael Caine, because he is the godfather of magic, apparently. So
Right. Right.
yeah, I
Yeah.
thought he did a really good job. Did you guys ever watch Now You See Me? Or now,
Yes.
I think it's Now You See Me.
Yeah.
He
The
is
Disney thing? Is that the
no,
Disney
no,
thing?
no. It's a magician one
Leo.
too. It's got no, it's
Oh,
got Jesse
yes.
Eisenberg in it
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I have
Okay.
seen that, but it's been a while.
and Woody Harrelson.
Yeah, yeah.
There's two of them. The second one's not very good, but he's in that one too. And he basically does the exact same job he does in this movie, where he kind of narrates stuff in the background, and he's like this overarching kind of godfather of magic. And he does
Sure.
such a good job just reading off paper. He's going to be in every magician's movie from here on out.
Yeah.
But-
No, I think the whole movie just was great from like you have to really watch it a second time, I think, to really fully appreciate it too. Because then you can go
I
back
agree.
and how Borden's sitting there like at the very beginning where they're like, look at that the Chinaman or whatever, like he's fully committed to his craft. And if you look it up, that was a real
intense.
magician.
Mm-hmm.
The Chinaman, like it's a real character, and it was a white guy who played a Chinaman for 16 years.
Right.
And then all until a catching the bullet trick went wrong, and it actually shot him, and that's when he broke character and actually spoke English for the first time in 16 years.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I just saw that little fact, and I was like, holy crap! So they actually play some like real people in this whole thing with like Tesla and Edison and
Right.
like
And that scene, where he's outside and Bale is like legitimately pissed off. You don't understand. This is the sacrifice of the craft. This is the sacrifice of a good act. Like he is telling us what this movie is going to end up being.
Exactly.
But we just
Exactly.
don't know it yet. And that's a testament to Nolan, and it's a testament to Bale, because he is perfect in this movie, which he's a perfect in a lot of movies, which we'll talk about. But I mean, it's just the acting in this movie is just next level.
So he does a lot of magician work as well, directing this. A lot of stuff he'll throw in front of your face, but you don't see it like a magician would.
Yeah.
The whole Edison, what's his name thing?
Tesla.
Yeah, their rivalry. So whenever, do you remember when Tesla's getting heckled by somebody in the crowd?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the person that's heckling him later on in the film, whenever he goes into the hotel, and that's whenever all the Tesla people or all the Edison people came.
Yeah.
It's the same guy in Edison's. They show him for a split second. I had to go back and
Oh,
look.
really?
It's the same guy. So that was one of Edison's people that was heckling Tesla in the crowd. So something that obscure is they added that. Like that's crazy.
Right. And I wanted to talk to you guys about Christopher Nolan just a little bit, because he is actually, I mean, I don't know if I'd call him my favorite, because I really haven't given directors that much thought. I mean, he's got to be top 5, top 3 for me. Everything he makes, I'm all in on.
Has to be.
So but in this movie in particular, people asked him a lot of questions, as they normally do, because he's usually pretty good about talking to media, and they asked him like what the bigger point of this movie is, and he said that he kind of hinted at that it's related to filmmaking, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like he said that Angier is kind of like Michael Bay as a producer, where it's like all show. I want to be a showman. I don't really care about the quality of my movies. I just want to blow shit up, which is, whereas
every Transformer
Borden,
movie.
right, exactly. Whereas Borden is somebody like Kubrick, who is really analytical. Like, I don't know how much you guys know about him, because he's like 90s, but like he made like Clockwork Orange, Eyes Wide Shut, the Tom Cruise movie, with God, what was his wife? Shit.
Kay Holmes?
Yeah. No, it wasn't her, was it? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyway, he makes these movies. He made the 2001 The Space Odyssey. So he makes these movies that are like completely like very serious and deep rooted in fact. He was always known to have like books strung out everywhere when he made movies, and he was super analytical, and it's all he did. He breathed his work, which is very Borden.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like his take on movies, where you have to find the middle ground. You can't just read every book there is and just spit out some analytical movie. And you also can't just blow shit up and call it good like Michael Bay does. You have to meet in the middle. And he was kind of a take. There was kind of a take on that. And then another thing I saw, which I don't think he's actually said this is true, but it kind of comes back to what you said, Tanner, that Angier versus Brodin was just like Tesla and Edison.
Yeah.
Because Tesla used to work underneath Edison in real life, just like Brodin used to work underneath Angier. And then he split off, and he was like the flashy one that's like, you never know what we'll be able to do with science. We could have time travel. We could have this and that. Whereas Edison was super smart, but he was a renownedly known dick. And they reflect those two in a pretty real way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty smart on Nolan's part too.
All around great movie. This is one of my top movies, honestly.
Yeah. I don't know a whole lot of movies, but I believe Nolan did Dunkirk, right?
He did.
Yes, he did.
And that's a fantastic movie.
I've
seen
not
The Dark
seen that one
Knight.
yet.
Right.
You'll like that one.
He did the Batman trilogy, Memento,
Yeah.
Inception.
Yeah. I've seen Inception. That was a long time ago, though.
Great movie.
I'd
I
love
watched
to
it.
talk
I
about that one
turned
again.
around, went back in the movie theater, and watched it again. I swear. I was in the Ozarks and just immediately turned right back around and went in there again.
We should just do a little clip of us just reviewing that movie. I'd like to just talk about that one again.
Well, if you don't think that's going to be in Leo's, then you got another thing coming.
He's got a butt ton of movies, though.
Yeah.
Oh, please. I know. He's my favorite. So when we get to him, we might do him for 3 months. You guys might quit the podcast. So, but how do you guys feel before we move on to the rest of the cast? Did you guys like everybody else in it? First off, did you notice that Tesla was freaking David Bowie?
Yeah, no, I didn't even realize that until I think
David Bowie. What?
No, I did not. I mean, when Scarlett Johansson showed up, I was like, okay, she's the mistress immediately.
Right.
She's not just going to be the assistant.
No, impossible. I thought she did a good job for what her role was. She kind of has like a timeless beauty to her. So she kind of fits any time period.
Yeah.
Like some people I don't know if would fit in the movie when you're trying to do 1910, but I think she does. I think she did a good job. Her accent was awful though. Just let her talk normal. I don't get why she kind of halfway did it. It was not good.
So one thing was the movie based in London, but they went to Colorado Springs just for Tesla?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought, but it was kind of confusing a little bit there.
Yeah, they bounce back and forth a lot, but yeah.
It takes a little bit to follow because you're kind of in the middle, and then reading about the past, and then also reading about the further future past. Like you kind of had to get on board and like, what the heck is going on? But
right,
especially when he's reading the book and he's like, yeah, to you, Angier, Tesla was just a code. It's not even part of anything.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I just love the movie. Like, I don't know how else I could explain that part, but.
Did you guys have any parts of the movie that you kind of had like little complaints about it? Or you guys just like it through and through?
I could bash the movie a little bit.
I have two bashes.
Okay.
All right, you start.
Okay. The first one is, if Angier loves his wife as much as he does, and he goes out of his way to kiss her leg every time before they dump him in water, and
Why is he not tying the tie on the arms?
why is he not tying the more important tie? Why would you do the legs? That doesn't matter.
I'll take it further. Was CPR not invented at this point? I think
It was not.
He gave up.
CPR
gave up wicked early.
CPR was not around then.
All right. That was my guess then, because I'm like, dude, you just gave up on her, man.
My
He just
thing
gave her
is,
a quick slap, and he's like,
Why-
"Oh, she's dead."
why are you using such thick glass? What the hell does the glass matter?
It's
That was
going to
be my follow-up.
It's
I
gotta
know there's a
hold the
lot of
water.
water, but Jesus Christ, we don't have a shark in there. What are we doing? But honestly, like if it was any of our wives, you would be tying your wife's hands. You're not tying
Yeah.
the feet.
The
You're
feet
not
don't
doing
matter.
They literally don't matter at all. It's amazing. I don't understand it at all.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was, I thought the ending, his speech as he was hurt, was way too long.
Yeah,
And
you're
also-
not gonna be
And also,
calm that
that's
long.
not for the fans. Don't you dare tell us, after watching 2 hours of you just doing nothing but trying to make yourself better, to tell us as you're dying, this was for the fans' reaction. This is for the
Yeah.
crowd.
No.
It was for your
No.
feeling after the crowd. It was
Yeah.
for you. Don't you sit here and lie.
Yep.
Even in his
You're-
last breath, he lied.
Bastard. Yeah. You like him really all the way up until kind of the end, and you're like, what, you stole his kid away? And then maybe it's because I got kids. I don't know. But then when he dies, you're like, okay, I'm okay with that.
Right. I was very okay with it by the end.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can live with that.
And it's weird because they want you to think he's a good guy the whole movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah, I guess. I always felt like there was, like when you're watching it, there's this mysteriousness to Borden where you're just kind of watching it and like you kind of think he's an ass, but he isn't hateful. And when you watch Hugh
Yeah.
Jackman's character, you can watch the progression of him just losing his mind.
Yeah. Especially when he said that about his wife. He's like, I don't care about my wife. I care about the trick or whatever. Like,
So what did you think
Lost
about when he says, "Yeah, we do this gun trick, the catching the bullet. Yeah, the only way it could go wrong is if they actually put something in there." And then they're
But
like,
don't worry about it.
"Don't worry about it. No, we're accidentally gonna let Hugh Jackman in to shoot you in the face."
yeah. How do they always get picked?
That's
That's what I got problem. How do they always get picked out of the crowd to come up and look at
Hugh
or be the
Jackman's
one to
outfits
do
are
it?
so half-assed too. He's like, well, I'm just going to put an overcoat hat on and, oh, it must not be him. Okay, whatever. It's like, all right.
We could talk on and on about this movie, but this week's sponsor is Redbox. Get your movies at Redbox. Redbox, hook us up with a sponsorship.
Chuck us a buck, man.
Chuck us a buck.
Chuck us a buck. All right, you guys ready to move on to my movie?
Let's do it.
Sure.
I'm actually more excited to hear about what you guys thought about the movie because it's one of those movies where like I feel like a guy who watches like an indie, like is into an indie band and then tells all their friends to like get on it and you just feel like a jackass. I kind of feel like that even though this movie's really well known. Because
man.
at this point in time, neither one of you had seen it, right?
Correct.
No.
Okay. When I told you guys and I had that feeling like, oh shit, you guys haven't seen this, I was like, I don't know if they're going to hate this or not, but honest to God, I think this is his best individual performance. It's not the best movie he's in, but he is unbelievable in this movie.
I can understand that.
I think Leonardo could have done better when he was supposed to do it, but
Oh, yeah.
I
I think
can see
he
that.
took.
I don't think
he
he
took,
hits his highs.
I haven't seen
No,
it.
he's insane.
No, I think you're right. I think he did it the way he should have done it, but like I think it would have been interesting to see Leonardo do it because it seems like a role he would take. But
Well, here's how you know he did a good job being crazy. He's in a movie with William Dafoe and Jared Leto, and he's so crazy, they look normal. Okay? That's how you know he did a good job. Because those guys are fucking insane.
yep, I believe that.
But yeah, I mean, really, there isn't much to say. If hopefully people listening to this, they were good little boys and girls, and they watched the movies before they joined the pod. But I think it. I don't even need. There's not much to even say. He does such a good job. Every scene just looking insane, dropping off of his medication. You're not even sure if what you're watching is real or not. And he really loses his shit through this movie. And he does such a good job doing it. If I watched this and then was getting ready to watch Batman for the first time, I'd be like, he's the Joker. He is not Batman.
Yeah.
I mean, right?
He would make a great Joker.
Yeah.
Right. I love this movie so
I
much.
can't wait till we talk about the theories behind the movie.
There's 100 of them.
Yeah, I know. But I think, especially if you've seen what the director's already said about the movie, I'll play into what I think the whole deal is about it. But
well, before I jump into the quotes, I wanted to see, can you guys just tell me what you thought about it before I go on about it? Did you guys say like,
I never thought. Yeah, you go ahead.
Well, I turned the movie off when it was over, and I'm like, what was that?
Yeah.
So
right.
To me, it was sex, drugs, rock and roll, killing.
Right.
And then there's a big scene that doesn't make any sense, and then the end.
Talking about the cars blowing up?
Yeah, and then it's over, and I was like, all right.
That was a trip.
But
well, I promise I won't just pick movies that have to do with sex or sex adjacent movies from before 2000.
Well, you're 2 for 2. So anyway,
I am 2 for 2.
I will say that I was zoned in on his acting, on being a psycho person.
Right.
He did that well.
Brilliant, I think.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest takeaway really is that performance, regardless of what the story was, really just like how he probably dove in. And I think that's what I'm kind of getting from all of the movies with him. And I can't wait till we get the other ones to really focus in on it. But like, he's a guy who commits to his movies and goes all in. But yeah, I never thought that this kind of movie would be in the Apex conversation, but
I know I picked it, and I don't regret picking it because I think it's a good movie. But when I picked it and then I watched it, I was like, I should have gave them a heads up because this movie is intense.
Yeah,
but
you waited until I clicked play about 3 hours ago with my kids sitting on the couch to say, hey, make sure your kids aren't sitting on the couch.
Yeah, you sent me a snap. You said, I think I'm good. And you had them like holding their iPads, and I was like, I don't know if you're good, dude. This is
right after
crazy.
that, I said, hey, buddy, why don't you go up and get your headphones?
And some blinders.
Yeah.
Some blinders, yeah.
Just don't look up.
Oh, I had to skip through some of those, so.
Well, and then I will say before I jump into the quotes and scenes too, this is based off a book, as I'm sure you guys both know, and the book is way more intense than the movie is.
Yes,
way more intense. But so
the author did not want a movie. Author did not want a movie,
and I don't blame him. Shit's crazy, but I think they did a great job.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say this before I jump into everything. The reason why it feels so like cartoony and like everybody that's around him seems kind of over the top, either one way or the other. They're extremes. They're either like boring and they don't notice him, or they're like super high strung, or it's a girl that just can't get enough of him or whatever. In my opinion, before we dive into theories and stuff, which I can wait, I don't think anything we're watching, basically once we've seen him take medication and we start going into the killing, I don't think any death was real. I don't think any of them happened. Some of them think some of them happened. Some of them think all of them happened. I think
at what
none
point
of
does
them
he take his medication though?
There's a part where like the two girls are on the bed, and he's talking to them about music, and he opens the bottle of pills, and he's taking it and drinking it while he's talking to them.
Right.
And like I think it comes in and out of reality. I think some girls were over, but not all of them. Like anytime there's two girls or more at his house, none of those are real. I think that this is in his head. He's kind of a standoffish, weird guy in real life, and he needs his medications to stay sane and stay normal. And he's fighting this tug and pull of like, what do I need to do to be seen? I honestly don't think anything that he did of any level of gore or sex happened.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it has this weird cartooniness to it, especially when he shoots with a pistol at the car and blows up cars with a pistol. I mean, that is like them looking right at you on the screen and saying, this is not real.
And then he even looks at himself. Like he looks at his gun like,
2 for 2 on a pistol?
How did I do that?
And ATM says, feed me a stray cat.
Yeah, and he's like, well, fuck it. Let's go.
So, I guess.
So, I don't know. Are we jumping into theories now and just
Let's wait because,
let's
after that scene, the old lady's like, "No, please." He's like, "Nope."
He's like, bang.
And then
Doesn't even think about it.
he walks in the building and they're like, "Hey, Smith, how you doing?" He's like, "Nope."
Yes, and another thing that this kind of reminds me of, and I think they took pieces of this movie, Joker, that came out last year.
Yeah.
I think, especially the scenes where he's talking to the girl who he thinks is his girlfriend, but in reality, they have not had any communication at all. And he walks into her apartment, and she's like, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah.
Those scenes where he's clearly by himself, but there's somebody with him, and he's laughing with nobody, and it's really kind of eerie and creepy. It has that same feel that this whole movie has, where like all this shit's in his head.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
I'll jump into quotes to kind of keep it moving, so we're not jumping all over the place. I think this might be my favorite quote, the first one.
Yes.
He's like, "Nice, check mine out. Comic Sans on papyrus." And he looks so pissed off when he looks back at the screen. He's like, "I cannot believe Josh likes this more than mine."
Yeah.
Shit. Oh, and when he's chopping up Alan, and he says, "Try getting a reservation at Dorsia now, you stupid fucking bastard." Oh my God, I was dying. And then he's like, "Are you wearing a raincoat?" And that's my next one. And he says, "Is that a raincoat?" Yes, it is.
Yes. Dude, that scene, he reminds me of what's his name? Like Ace Ventura type.
Right.
Yeah,
He looked
He sounds
crazy.
just like Get Out.
Crazy Christian Bale is normal Jim Carrey.
Okay.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, seriously, it's just crazy.
He flipped a switch there. Like that's probably. I mean, I'm sure you'll get to that in scenes, but yeah. I honestly, there's a lot of good quotes on this movie.
And then one that I hope all the kids were out of the room for. He says, "Sabrina, don't just stare at it, eat it."
Dude,
I laughed out loud
I
when
did
he
too.
said that, because he said it like he said it like he's a professor reading a book to college students. "Sabrina, don't just stare at it, eat it."
Well, my wife was in the kitchen, and I assumed like that's like telling your kid, "Don't fucking just stare at it. Fucking eat your food."
Exactly.
But then I look over at my kids like, "Oh shit, he's about to eat. He's about to make her eat that."
Right. Fucking crazy.
The one part, my wife was folding laundry, and he goes, "Clean your vagina." No, from the back, and I was like, "Oh, don't worry about it."
Oh my God, the movie is so crazy. And then whenever he's calling the lawyer and the helicopter's going by and he's on the phone going nuts, and he says one part that like I couldn't understand at all. But then when I went back and I actually found like the audio where it was written, and I looked it up, and he said, "I ate some of the brains and I tried to cook a little," and he's losing his mind. And I thought he says it in such an insane way.
Yeah,
I felt like it has to be one of the top quotes, because I bet you Christian Bale said that into a mirror 1,000 times. He said it at peak insanity.
Oh man.
Did you guys have any quotes from it that I didn't add?
No, those are good.
Yeah, so I had not really one certain quote, but his monologues that he was doing while he was narrating, and he walks into the dude's room after he killed him or whatever, and he said, he kind of said something like, "I'm enraged. He's got a nice view. This place is obviously more expensive than my place." And he's like, "But then I get over it and I move into his bedroom."
Yeah, it's just
an interesting one. Definitely an interesting one, man.
I think my favorite scene of the whole movie is whenever he's on the phone call and he's like, "I probably killed 20 of them. Not probably 40."
He's like, "I killed homeless people 5. I don't know, 10."
Well,
that scene was good too.
That line and that scene kind of plays into my theory of why I think none of it's real.
All right, what's your theory?
Okay.
All right. So, like Jacob said, I agree. He didn't kill anybody. And to just go off of that scene before I forget it, starts off with how meticulous he is about every single thing that he does. You're telling me that he's like that, but he doesn't know how many people he's killed? Like 20 to 40, like that. So I'm taking that scene as like he has no idea. Like in his mind, he has no idea. Right. Obviously, all the scenes that they kind of just put in front of your face, blowing up the car, shooting the people, and then like the ATM. So you like leave the movie thinking, okay, none of it was real. So I watched an interview with the director, and they kind of bring it up to the director, and she's like, "I have no idea why people keep thinking this movie's real, or I mean, not real, like that it was a dream or something." He's like, or it was all in his head. He's like, in my mind, when I directed this, it happened. All of it happened. But Isn't that
no way.
exactly what you would
Can't.
think a
There
director
is
would
no
say?
way.
Well, no, I mean, listen.
No.
Listen, everybody leaves the movie thinking, okay, there's no way. This isn't real. But if you tell somebody that, if you end it with, oh, this was all a dream, or, oh, this is all real, like, and here's the
Right.
proof, then nobody's questioning it. Nobody's
Yeah.
watching it again to figure it
And-
out. Nobody's
and it's-
wondering.
Right.
So
And it's no
the
different
director,
than God, what's that shit show where everybody just woke up on the plane?
you talking about the Lost or something?
Lost. That's
Yeah.
what the same thing would happen. Everyone
Yeah.
hated that movie because
Exactly.
everybody hated that TV show because every season they had a big plot hole, like a hole in the ground where everybody was going inside, but they never opened it. The first episode of the season, there's a polar bear they never explained. They always do this dumb shit, and then at the very end, it's like actually none of it was real, and everybody fell
Right.
asleep.
And it's
That's
terrible.
garbage.
So they did a good job. She did a good job of leaving it open-ended. However, she feeds into it because she's like, all right, the general population says that it wasn't real. So I'm going to come out and say that, oh, I intended for all of it to be real. So now you're
Right.
just like, oh, man, what's it going to be? Now I got to go back and rewatch it. So I think she's just playing the game, and I think it's still not real just for that. Like, you can't make a movie that ridiculous and it be real, honestly.
Well, I'm glad that you started with that scene because I'll just jump straight into my favorite scenes and just we can bounce back and forth on theories because I think it really does change scene to scene on your opinion on it. And there's stuff that reinforce your case, and then there's stuff that there isn't. So, for instance, when you were talking about the ATM scene, or at least I was, where he's trying to feed the stray cat to the ATM, and then he's shooting at the cars, and they're shooting back at him, but bulls aren't even in the same vicinity as him.
And he's not covered at all.
No, and he's shooting them, and then the car blows up. Did you notice the first thing he did was look at his gun? Like, did I do that? And then the second thing he did was look at his watch. And people look at watches in lucid dreams because they don't work. So that was like an homage. They were looking at you and winking into the camera saying like, yeah, we know this shit is crazy. He's looking at his watch to be like, what time is it? Because that's what you do in lucid dreams to find out if you're lucid dreaming or not.
Yeah.
That's one of the ways, at least. So I thought that was pretty cool. Like that. I like that scene just because of how ridiculous it is. I also like the "I'm a pretty sick guy" scene, which is where he's on the phone with the lawyer. I thought that was pretty cool because he is just losing it.
Yeah.
The face cleaning scene at the beginning where he's talking about all of his different
specific.
Yeah.
Yes. And then like right when he gets to the point where he was going to pull off the mask, he starts talking about the illusion of him and like how no one understands and sees him in the way that he wishes they would. And I really think that scene was important because it really lined up the movie on what the point of the movie is, that he doesn't feel seen, and he's off and on with his medicine, and everything's in his head. Every time he stares off into space, we're hearing what he's thinking. And I think it's just kind of a nod that this is the ride you get ready to take. A ride with this crazy guy.
Yeah.
I also liked the I call it hip to be square scene where he's killing Paul Allen, because in the background it's hip to be square as he's killing him. So I thought that scene was pretty cool for obvious reasons. It's the one everybody thinks of.
Yeah.
The no girls with good personality. I like that scene because it shows how much of a chameleon he is. Because he talks in one scene about equality. He has a speech about equality when he's at work. And then in this scene, the complete opposite happens. And he's sitting around joking with the guys acting like there's impossible for girls to be interesting and attractive. And I think that scene was really important for the viewer to look at him and understand how he's successful. Because if you're just a loose cannon 24/7 and you want to murder people and you listen to music way too loud and you're just a loose cannon, there's no way you're going to be a vice president of anything. Right. But it shows his ability to be a chameleon and to blend into his surroundings. I think that was a really important.
Well, they also said it's his dad's company.
Right.
So,
which has to be part of it.
Yeah. So I had two questions. First off, he mentioned the Trump family about 3 times. He said, "Oh shit, is that Donald Trump's car?" And then he said, "Is that Ivanka Trump?" And then he said something about Melania or whatever at one point. Do you guys was that just part of it? Do you guys know?
I don't know if it has any meaning aside from just at that point in time he was at peak of popularity. I mean, obviously he's had a resurgence in the last couple of years, but
Right.
as far as TV goes,
Do you think
TV
that
goes,
just had to do with him worrying about how much money he has and things like
it
that?
could.
Yeah.
Because he also
It
talks
could.
about how much his place is, and I don't want to. I'm not gonna say how much it is, but it wasn't cheap.
It's a lot.
And then,
I forgot.
and then also when he's about to kill somebody, he's always referencing music. He plays the music, and then he's got all these facts about the music. Does that mean anything, or was that just kind of part of it?
I think the music is another nod to the viewer that, like he could be sitting at home listening to music real loud, and like I'm sure you guys can relate. I do it with podcasts too. When my mind trails, I don't even hear the music really, but it's in the background, and I almost feel like he's playing like. I'm glad you brought that up, because do you remember the Whitney Houston part of the scene where he has a girl over and he starts talking about her greatest hits and how he thinks the girl rolls off of the couch and she's laughing at him on the ground for being somebody that's into basic music. She's calling it basic music, and he's sitting there in a very like monotone voice explaining why he likes Whitney Houston and thinks that all of her songs are perfect and yada, yada, yada. I thought that scene was really good. It's kind of showing that he's talking to nobody and nobody's listening. Like he's in his own mind. He when he listens to these music, he thinks he's having these deep thoughts about all this music. So he's smarter than everybody, and he can see what Whitney's really trying to get. But at the end of the day, it really is just pop music. And it's just this. I think that the music that they're really hammering home with him is just trying to show like, no, dude, you don't have everything figured out. You're not some amazing man that we're all lucky to be graced with your presence. You listen to regular ass music just like everybody else.
Yeah.
Whitney Houston isn't giving us any more than we all are getting.
And that kind of how it ends too with him. He's disappointed in, well, if I'm assuming that none of it's real, and at the end when he's figuring out like, what do you mean I didn't kill that guy and that guy's alive or whatever? You know, he's like, you know what, I'm not special because I wanted to be this serial killer, serial rapist guy, like better than all these other people, more interesting than all these other people. But really, I'm just making this crap up in my head, and I'm just the same as everybody else. Yeah, you know.
I actually saw I was looking this stuff up, and I know that this movie is really fed off of fanfic and popular opinions on the theories of it, and it's a little bit more complicated than just he killed people, we're moving on. And I saw this one that somebody did with the lawyer scene I thought was interesting. I didn't write their name down because I think I saw it in YouTube comments, I think. And at that point, I was just like, whatever. You're writing in the public. I'm not going to write your full name down. The person said, when he confronts the lawyer, he realizes he's gotten away with it. And the whole point is that he was wanting to be punished. Just anything to be different from everyone else in his circle. But he won't be punished because nobody cares except for themselves. So he was left trapped. And this is no exit, is what he says. And then behind him, there's a sign that says this is not an exit. And the movie or the book, American Psycho, ends with it saying this is not an exit. So I thought that was a cool way that they tied the movie up that also ties with the book. And I wouldn't have known that if I didn't read the comments. So I thought I would bring that up. I thought that was pretty neat.
I think the movie, the script and everything kind of got tossed around by a bunch of different directors and different people. And I know one director, I forget who it was, had it. And that's when Leonardo DiCaprio was going to play the role. And then they just didn't do it. And they passed it off to the female. And I don't remember her name. Maybe you guys can tell me. I don't know. But
I don't remember.
And then she picked him for it, Christian Bale. But she had like her own motives behind this whole movie, which is part of the reason why the author I don't think was too big on it. But books are completely different sometimes, and this type of book I think, which is why he was like, in a book you can write whatever you want and it doesn't really matter if it was a dream or it wasn't a dream. It's a freaking book. But because it's a movie, everyone's got to have, like, you can see visual representations and you can see all these different things, so that plays into like why you guys are questioning whether or not it was real or wasn't real or not. He just wanted to freaking write the book and be happy about it. But,
And the book is incredibly intense, and I don't really want to bring up the stuff that he did in the movie or did in the book that wasn't in the movie because it's even more graphic and more intense. But I think he wrote the book at least in some manner to be interpreted. You know what I mean? And I think you have to expect that when you write the book, when you do the movie too. So,
Yeah.
So you and I both think that he didn't actually kill anybody, right? Tanner, is that what you think, or do you think something a little different?
I think that, but I think he's a schizo.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And I think so. At the end when he's talking to his lawyer, the lawyer is saying a different name, and I don't remember what that name was, but it wasn't the Bateman guy. So I think his alter ego, the killing side of him, the schizo side is the Bateman, and then his normal side, I think is, I don't even know what his real name is, but I think throughout the whole movie he's referred to as the Bateman guy, to play off of the schizo side of him. But I think the normal side of him is the one that he's so intact, and this is what I do every day. I could do 1,000 sit-ups, and this is my moisturizers and everything. And then the killing side is the Bateman guy.
I mean, he's definitely narcissistic. I mean, there's no doubt.
Sure.
I mean, he's a full-blown sociopath. If you have that many moisturizers and you talk to yourself about how you do it in the mirror, you're probably a sociopath. Well, I think we needed that as an audience.
That plays into. I mean, I have reasons for why it could also go the other way, and that it was real, and because it answers some of the questions of why they do certain things, and the thing about the name thing, I guess, throughout the whole movie, they refer to each other as different names all the time, and that I think the theme behind that is that because everyone's so self-centered, they don't really care about anybody else. They also all look about the same.
Yeah.
They all have they're wearing the same type of stuff. They're always trying to outdo each other. Like if they know who you are, if they know who you are, it's because you have something better than I do at that time, and I'm trying to be above that. And if you're below me, then I don't care who you are and who you aren't. But that to kind of some of the things of why it could have been true and why the lawyer said that is because the lawyer's the same thing. He's so self-centered.
Yeah.
He doesn't know who he had lunch with.
Right.
He's like, I had lunch with that guy a couple days ago. It's like he has no idea. He thought he did, maybe he didn't. And then or Christian Bale thought he killed that guy, but maybe he killed somebody else because he thought he was somebody else, because they just don't know each other's real names or something. I don't know. Like they just played that off of everyone so self-centered and self-focused on themselves and what do they call that community? The yuppie community.
Right. And I think that they did that on purpose because especially if me and you are right, and this is all kind of in his mind. I mean, in his mind, especially if you want to get into his perspective, they all act the same. They all look the same to him. They're all boring and insignificant to him. They all want to be him in some capacity. They don't understand him, and that's clear throughout the movie. But maybe they don't look all that similar in real life. But if you're in his brain and all he can see is that he's not appreciated, they all start to look the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like that it's
like an
they're hammering that home. I can't imagine that she says it's all real. I just can't.
Yeah, it's like an anorexic person looking in the mirror and she sees herself as fat.
Right. Yeah, I can.
Even that guy, the guy he killed, he was like, he didn't know that it was him. The guy he killed didn't know he was who he thought he was. And he's talking about how worthless he is and all this stuff. And then so he kills him. Well, then the lawyer does the same thing. No, that Bateman guy's worthless. That was...
Yeah. I had one because I figured, Steelman, that you were going to agree with me that none of it was real. I had that hunch. So I found somebody that doesn't agree with us. And I printed out their summary of the movie. I want to see what you guys think. The name is Ruben. I actually wrote his name down. This is one of those films where
let's hear it.
This is one of those films where it ends up to the audience. It ends up to the audience if he really killed people or not. I believe that he really did kill Paul Allen and all those girls. His lawyer at the end mistook him for Davis and also thought that he had recently had dinner with Paul. In my interpretation, Bateman has two personalities, his normal self where he shows into the public and in which he has an obsession with fitting into society and being just like everybody else. And his psychotic side is his true personality in which a person who has turned insane from his over-obsession with fitting in with society. In reality, Bateman hates himself for what he has become, but he knows that he won't stop, which makes him hate himself even more. He takes this hate on everyone he believes deserves it. He preys on the poor and weak because they are easy and do not belong in a working community, and people just as ignorant or self-centered as he is, such as the prostitutes or his friend Elizabeth. He spares Jean because she represents everything that he has always wanted to be, someone who actually has his dreams for the future and has a passion in creating or in trying to become a better person, which makes her stand out and unique from everyone in the society that he lives in, making her the outsider, if you will. He also ends up sparing Lewis, the gay guy, because he, in the last minute, showed Patrick that what he really was, which is a homosexual, someone who would be considered an outsider in his society. So he basically targets random people he meets that he believes in his twisted mind are a plague to the possibility of a better society. The only events I believe that didn't happen was him killing the old lady and the explosion of the police cars. At this point, he has seriously lost his will to know reality from whatever is in his head.
But the chainsaw is real, because nobody heard
that
the
was
chainsaw.
hilarious.
Nobody heard the chainsaw. And
Which great chainsaw kill, because she's running away on the ground normal, and somehow it goes into her side perfectly, because when she lays down, it's through like her like liver on the side of her body. I'm like, how did that? Where's the angle at? Did it bounce off the ground?
So one part that didn't totally make sense to me is whenever he goes back to Paul's place and it's all painted, and that lady's like, "Oh, are you my 2:00?" And he's like, "No," and she's like, "Oh, you didn't read the papers?" And then she's like, "Get out, don't come back."
so
Yeah.
the reason I think, well, if it was a dream, then that just means that that was a real moment, and he showed up thinking that, and she was like, "What are you talking about? That's all fake." But if it was real, it plays in she is also a self-centered, all in this high community. Whereas if you report a crime in a really high-end apartment complex of like, hey, there's a bunch of murders here, do you think you're going to get an apartment there? Absolutely not. That would ruin business.
Right.
So she was as dirty as everybody else is on doing all this stuff. She's like, oh, a couple bodies? Yeah, let me get rid of that because I'm not going to risk somebody not moving into this place.
And since he
Right.
went to the closet, she knows that he knows, since he wasn't
Right.
at 2:00. So she tells him to get
I
out.
think it wasn't in the paper, right? It wasn't even in the
Right.
paper.
Right.
She's like, "Did you check the paper?" And he was like, "No." Well, yeah.
And then
She's
she
like, "It
was
wasn't
like,
in the paper."
it wasn't in the paper. So she knew that he was the guy
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
like that did that. So, I mean, you could go either way with the scene, honestly. I think it was meant for interpretation. And I think the
Yeah.
director's just saying random crap.
Right. And like, and a sidetrack, I guess. Have you guys had lucid dreams before, where you
I've
can
had
control
one
it?
or two. Yeah.
Okay. So
No, I don't think so.
I had just one or two in high school and then going into college, but I've had them a little bit more frequently now as an adult. I don't know why. I won't pretend to understand why any of that happens, but in the few that I have, they're always kind of short. But if I do something, there's like this moment in my brain in the dream where I'm like, okay, what's the next thing that has to happen? If that makes any sense. It's almost like you're directing a film, but you're winging it. So it's like, oh, I pushed this down a flight of steps. Well, now I need some weird excuse. So then then I'm like, somebody will walk up to you and be like, what happened? And then they're just staring at you, waiting for a response. And you get to kind of slowly think of it as you, like, because everything's waiting on you. You're the one making everything up. It's very strange. But I almost feel like that's kind of what's happening in this movie too, where so he kills a bunch of people and then he talks to that lady and he's like, what is she going to say? How am I going to get out of this kind of thing? I really feel like 80% of this movie is inside his brain to the point where we're just kind of following him along in a lucid dream.
That's a good
Or
point.
at the very least, he's vegging out on the couch, losing his mind at home, listening to Whitney Houston at full blast.
Good point.
The whole movie.
Doing cocaine.
Yeah.
Doing cocaine.
That's a good point.
Good to know that's what's managing our stock market.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I'm sure some people think it's not too far off.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, I think that was pretty much all my notes on it. Did you guys have anything else to say about it? Rewatchability probably at a 0.
I'd probably watch it by myself, not with the kids in the room.
I tried to save you on Snap.
Yeah. too little,
I
too
just
late.
assume that every movie that we're gonna watch, I always do a little research before we watch it. And I'm like, all right, this is definitely not gonna happen.
Yeah, I did no research on this movie.
Right. And I've seen it a couple of times. They have
It's
a
called
cleaned up
American
version.
Psycho. It's called American Psycho.
Yeah,
Right, and he is. And he is. I actually watched it the first couple. I watched bits and pieces. Like, this is kind of what I'll tell you about every movie when we talk about people. I went through a huge phase watching movies on like basic TV and TBS and stuff like that. So I saw this movie in bits and pieces a lot, and they had to clean up a lot of it for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But watching it actually uncut this time, it was pretty intense, and I was wondering how you guys were gonna feel about it. But I do think wholeheartedly that this movie was 100% reliant on how he was in this, and I thought he killed it. I thought his range of emotions were wide. I thought each scene we were on a trip with him. We were in his mind with him,
Yep.
and he just, because even if 1% of him wasn't into this movie, it would have been awful. But you could almost feel like Christian Bale was literally losing his mind in this movie.
Yep, definitely.
I had a lot of appreciation for it and still do.
Yeah.
For sure. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Apex Mountain. You can email us on apexmountainpod@gmail.com. You can give us a call in if you'd like to have a little chat with us at 307-696-2650. You can follow us on Apex Mountain Pod on Instagram and Twitter. And what are the episodes for next week, fellas?
Make sure to watch the last two movies, The Big Short and his best movie, in our opinion, The Dark Knight.
Yep. So
I'm excited. I'm excited for those.
We'll be reviewing those next week. So give those a watch and come check us out next week.
Bye.